Good to be back. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Setson. Today is going to be a continuation of our Excel automation series. We want to be able to automate this process. We want to separate data entry from data storage. Right, so what we did in our previous tutorial was to create this and also build a form. If I run this form here, you can see the form that we have. We should be able to enter our name and our email and hit this save button, and that information should be in our database right here. That's what we're looking to do. Right, so before we jump into our code, I have a few things that I need to change on the form. The first one is the name of the form. You can leave it as user form 1, but I really don't want to go with this name, so I'm going to name this tutorial_form. And also these text inputs, so we already gave these names. You can see right here, this is name_txt and this is email_txt. We're going to use this in our code, so it's important to name these things right here. The buttons, they're not important to name. You can leave it as command button 1 and command button 2. The next thing we need to do now to work on the logic, to go to insert, and then we want to insert a module. So I'm going to click on module. And so you have this open right here. We want our user to be able to click on this shape right here and present it with a form. And so for us to be able to do that, we're going to create a sub procedure. We want to define a sub called open form, like that. If I hit enter, you can see it auto completes, puts that end sub. This is how you define a sub procedure. So it's sub and then the name of the sub and then end sub. Inside here, we want to hold the name of our form. So I'm going to say tutorial_form, and then on this tutorial form there are properties and methods that you can use on this form. The one that we want to access is the show. If I'm to save this and then go back to my Excel and right click on this shape, and then I want to assign it a macro, click on assign macro, and then you can see our open form which we just defined in that module. So I'm going to select this open form and then click OK. And now what this means is if I click on this, now I should have access to that form. So if I click on this, you can see now I have access to that form. So we have this functionality working, and so we're going to move on. The next one is going to be the reset. And so reset is quite easy. Let me close this, go back to our module right here, double click, and then we're going to create a sub called reset. And for us to reset, it's quite easy. We just call the form, so tutorial_form. And those properties, the first one is the text box. For the name, we called it name_text, and its value. It has got a value property. We can set that to an empty string like this. So tutorial_form again. Email, yes, we call that text box. And so what we're dealing with is this text box and this text box, right? So we call this name_text. You can see the name. And also this one, we called it email_txt. That's what we're working with right here. And these have got a value property, and then we're setting that to an empty string. So double quotation mark. With this done, we can then bind this sub procedure to that button. So to bind that, we go to the form. We want to bind it to this reset button. Select the button. And then you can double click this button. You can see right here, it creates a sub procedure for that command button, which is a click command. We can just call that reset right here, reset. And if we are to go back to our form and check it out, click right here. If I write something here and also something here, and if I reset, you can see it clears those boxes. So that's what reset is doing right here. All right, we are done with this. Now we are moving on to the save. So let me close this and then go back to the module again. So right here, I'm going to create a sub called save_data. You can name it whatever you want. And so here, we want to be able to save that information. So for us to be able to save the information, we need to get hold of two things. And we need to get hold of the worksheet where we want to save our data. So in our case, we want to save our data inside the database. And inside that worksheet, we need to get hold of the row where we want to start saving our data. In this case, we want to start saving our data in row 2, A column row 2. We're going to create variables. So to create variables in VBA, it's quite easy. This tutorial right here gives you all that information. So let's check out the variables part. So to create a variable in VBA, you need to declare variables. So use dim, which is dimension, and then the name of the variable, and then as, and then the type of the variable. I'm going to say dim, and then I'm going to name this sh. This is our sheet, the worksheet, which is this database. So I'm going to call that sh as a worksheet. This is the type of these variables. I also need a variable to hold the count of the rows. So I'm going to say dim row_count as long This is just a data type which is called long. It's some kind of an integer, holds a huge number. This row count is going to be the row count in this worksheet right here. We can then set the values of this worksheet and this row count. Because a worksheet is an object in VBA, we need to use a keyword. So we use set keyword, and then we are now saying set the value of sh to be this workbook, which is an object, an Excel workbook. On that, we have sheets. We can then pass a value, the name of the sheet that we're targeting. In our case, you can see here sheet 1 and sheet 2. We're looking for the database. So here we can just specify that we are going for the database in quotation marks like that as a string. And so this will set the value of this to be this database. We also need to set the row count. For the row count, you don't need to use the set keyword because it's an ordinary variable. So we just say row underscore count, and we assign it a value. Let's say I want to count the number of rows that are occupied in column A. I have to use a function. It's a built-in function. That's what we're going to use. And so I'm going to show the value in E2. I can come up here and then I can use equal. This is how you use the function in Excel. So I can say count A. There's a function called count A. It counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. I can put parentheses right here, A all the way to A. So it's A column A. This is the range. It means the whole column of A. So if I hit enter, you can see it gives me a 1 because the number of non-empty rows in that column is just 1. It's this ID occupied row right here. And if I am to put some gibberish right here, you can see now it is counting now. It's 2 because these are two rows are occupied. If I put some information right here, you can see 3 rows are now occupied. And so this is basically how this count A works, right? So basically this is what we're going to be using. And so the row count, we use this syntax right here, square brackets, and then I'll use count A, and then we need to specify the worksheet that we're targeting. So we're using the name of the worksheet, which is database. That's the one that we are targeting. And then we use this exclamation point. This is going to be a separator to specify the range. Now we can say A colon A. Then we close this for this function, and then we close with a square bracket. And so this is going to give us the count of the non-empty cells in that particular column. So I can use a message box. I can say row count right here, row underscore count. And let's see whether this is going to work. We need to assign this sub procedure to that button. Okay, so I'm going to go to my form and double click the save. And now you can see if we click the save, we need to call save underscore data. That's the name we gave to that sub procedure. It's called save underscore data. Yes, exactly. This is exactly what we are doing right here. So if I'm to go back to my form, let me see, click this and let me save the data. You can see I'm getting a message box right here with 1 as the row count because our row count is 1 right here for the column A. If I add some data right here, let me say I add some gibberish right here and I save and I go back again and then I hit save. Now you can see we have 2 is the row count. It means this is working. What we need to do right here now, we need to assign values instead of printing this row count right here. We now need to assign values to that worksheet. And so the way we do that, we use sh and say sh.cells. It has got a cells property, which is just the cells that we have. The row index is going to be our row underscore count. Column index is going to be 1. What this means is, let me show you what we are doing right here. So our row count is this number, but for us to fill information on row 2, we need to add a 1. So that's what we're going to be doing right here. We're going to add a 1 so that we can fill the information on the next row. Row count 2 and cell 1, we are looking at column 1 right here, which is this column right here. Column A is 1. We can say that value, it has got a value property. And the value is going to be auto-generated for us. We're going to use the row count. So we're going to say row underscore count. But we're going to subtract a 1 because we need it to start counting from 1. We also need to do the same for the other columns as well. So we're going to use this sh dot cells again. Our row index is going to be our row count. This is going to be column 2 and dot value, and then we assign this. So here we're going to need the value from the name field in our form. So let me show you the form. So right here we need the value from this text box right here. So we're going to say tutorial underscore form dot, we name that name text. Here is the value of that text field. So if I go back again to the form, you can see the name of this text field right here is called name text, and so that's what we're using here. And then we want its value, and then we're going to assign it to the value of this particular cell right here. And then we can just copy this. Let me Control C and then Control V. It's going to be the same, row count the same, but this time the column is going to be the third column. The value is going to be of that of the email text field. So if I go back to the form again, now we're going to get the value from this. We named this email text. Okay, here email underscore txt, and then we're again going to get the value of that, and so it will be assigned to this cell right here. All right, so with this done, we are now able to save this information. Let's try this out. We're already calling this sub procedure on our button, and so we can go direct to the Excel and see whether this is working. So let me click this. So I'm going to say that right here, and then me yahoo.com saved. Looks like nothing happened, of course, but if I close and go to our database, you can see it's showing right here. We can have a couple of this data to John at gmail.com, and then save that, check our database and see whether this has been saved. You can see right here, so it's working, but we have one problem. So if we save, at least we should clear the field. And so once we save our data, we also going to call reset right here. We also need to call reset on initialization of the form. Let's say I click this button right here, it should automatically reset the field. So I'm going to call this on initialization. So let me double click this form here. So you come and click down here and you see there's an initialize. We want that on initialize, we're going to reset. All right, so with this done, let's go back to our form, hit here, form at gmail.com. If I save, you can see now it clears the information, and close. If I go to the database, you can see paul at gmail.com right here. So that means this is working. All right, there are a few things that we are left to do. I'm sure we're going to do that in our next tutorial. I hope this was helpful. If you find the videos helpful, you can leave a like. You can also consider hitting that subscribe button. I hope to see you in my next tutorial. For now, I'm out. Cheers.